I'm not going to get to you. So, I would ask that this nice lady here, with your name, please?
Lila Smith. Hi. Hi. Canada's at war. One party's addressing that whole issue, and I went out on the tables there, and the major parties weren't talking about it. It's not on the platforms, on the tables, right? So, and 163 Canadians have died in Afghanistan. We're talking about spending billions of dollars on fighter jets. I don't know who we're going to kill next. We're fighting for democracy. Since the 20s in Afghanistan, the Brits and the Russians and the Americans have thwarted democracy instead of promoting it. Last June in Toronto, record numbers of people fighting for democracy in Canada were thrown in jail.
Any question?
Okay, so I'd like you to address the idea of war and the idea that domestic violence of the warriors, when they come home, it rises in their homes, and we need to support them psychologically in the long and the short term. I want you to address the idea of war and why we're doing it.
And the question is, why are we doing the war?
What is your party's stance on the war that we're fighting now, and when are we leaving Afghanistan?
And we're going to start with the Action Party, Doug Hart.
Afghanistan is about the poppy fields, people. You know, there's a huge thing going on with poppy fields and drugs worldwide. And I think there's something about a pipeline that wants to be put in there too, right? When it comes to war, you know, I'm with Roger, and the Canadian Action Party is with Roger. We need to have a military, but to guard our border. We don't need to be interfering with what's happening elsewhere in the world. There's other ways to deal with it. You know, there's a great American called Noam Chomsky. And one of my favorite quotes that he said is that there's a really easy way to stop terrorism in this world. Stop being one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan Vanier, Liberal Party of Canada.
Thank you. It's a serious question, and I wouldn't even come close to trying to defend the reasons why we went into Afghanistan in the first place. I personally think it was a mistake. But I wasn't there. I wasn't making those decisions. Our party's policy with respect to Afghanistan is that our troops get redeployed from combat missions in Kandahar and into training missions. So we are supporting the government's approach on this matter. We feel that given the 163 lives that have been lost and the countless others sacrificed, maimed and injured and hurt in unspeakable ways, that we owe it to them, and we owe it to us, and we owe it to the Afghans to withdraw in a way that, to the extent possible, we provide proper training to the Afghan troops and police force so that they could actually defend themselves. So our combat mission will end based on the timetable set forth by the government, which is imminently, and the timetable for complete withdrawal of the training troops is 2 years. So this is fenced in, it's limited, and we will forego any further combat roles in Afghanistan.
Thank you. Green Party of Canada, Brandon Waters.
The platform offers an extensive commentary on Afghanistan, but I'll say this much. Probably the one and only point that I diverge from my party is that I don't think we should be in Afghanistan at all. That's my personal opinion, and I've actually stated that publicly in writing. I believe it'll be published in the Peak, I'm not sure. However, the Green Party has laid out an extensive plan, and that requires 2 years to get out, is what they've basically said. And in some ways I understand that, because we're already in the muck, and we need to exit with dignity and diplomatically. The diplomatic efforts have to be improved, and if we're using military means, the diplomatic options dwindle quickly.
Thank you. Progressive Canadian Party, Roger Edison.
Well, the number one, if you go on the progressivecanadian.ca website, the number one button that you will see there is about veterans and how they're treated and how they should be treated. And that's the #1 priority of the Progressive Canadian Party. And I think that you know, there's a lot of ways you can be damaged in a war. And most of it, I think, is psychological. A lot of it is really trauma. And I read about this article in the Rolling Stone magazine. And I went out and got the magazine. I don't usually buy this magazine. I don't usually buy any magazines, but I got this one. And it's called The Kill Team. And it's about premeditated murder. I mean, soldiers actually hunting down innocent civilians for sport. And this is in the Rolling Stone. It's the current issue of the Rolling Stone magazine, if you want to read it. You know, this whole issue of the war is kind of like, last election I went to these all candidates meetings and nobody brought it up. I said, what is this? This seems like the Twilight Zone. We're spending our national treasury on this stuff, and we're not even talking about it during an election. If you look at the campaign literature, the basic, you know, leaflets of all these parties, not a mention. Not a mention. Even though we're spending our billions and billions of dollars on this. Here's a Canadian author that doesn't mention it, is Michael Mandel. The title of the book is How America Gets Away with Murder. It shows how the war in Afghanistan is 100% illegal. Totally illegal. This is a professor of law who went to the same law school as our MP. And this is when he wrote this book on it. They're trying to tell us that we're going to fight terrorism abroad. You know, there is no country in the world that has greater terroristic positions than North America. I'm including us in North America because across the Strait of Georgia here, there's a place called Manus Bay.
Thank you, Robert.
Red card.
Thank you. So we're going to try the NDP.
I've written this one down because it's a very emotional issue. War is a very expensive thing. It's trillions and trillions of dollars. All to kill people. All to kill people. My party supports a total withdrawal from Afghanistan in fighting troops and supports fully education, humanitarian aid, schools, hospitals, trade. Many years ago, long before 9/11 and all of this, World Vision had a plan. And for $20 a month, you could adopt a child overseas. And one of those projects they had was the Girl Child Project, and it was in Afghanistan. And they found that by sponsoring a girl, you could keep her from early forced marriage. You could educate her, you could feed her, and her family found that she was far more valuable to them as an educated woman than as a child bride. I was sorry when my girl child she passed away. But anyway, education, humanitarian aid, you can do a whole lot more for a country by supporting them and by showing them a better way than you can by showing them the barrel of a gun.
You know, you've heard us conservatives say that this is an unnecessary election, but I would have to say, to hear Lila, to hear you, and to hear Roger Legacy, it doesn't hurt any of us because war is hell, war is awful. My dad was a prisoner of war. My uncle was Smokey Smith. In fact, there's a Smith Mountain near here named after him. He was the last surviving Victoria Cross holder. I think they'd agree with a lot of what Roger's saying. You know, nobody wants war. And as a member of Parliament, you know, whoever's the MP next has to consider sitting in the House and possibly casting a vote on this type of issue. So we do need to talk about it. Sure, you know, the major parties have worked together in the House of Commons, and all parties have agreed to extend the mission. The mission is to end July this year in Afghanistan, and we're bringing our troops home. We're going to replace them with mentors and teachers, hundreds of them, not thousands, less than 1,000, who will be there to equip the armed forces of Afghanistan to protect those women and to protect kids and to try and bolster some of the democracy that we have won in Afghanistan. You didn't mention Libya, but there needs to be more debate on Libya. The 4 leaders of the parties in the House agreed on our present action in Libya, but it was a hasty kind of an agreement, and we need more of that debate when this House resumes. Thank you, Lila, for the question.
We shouldn't go over
And Don, you're